Published and developed by Spike, now known as Spike Choonsoft,
YUUYAMI DOORI TANKENTAI
is a game about a bunch of kids exploring their neighborhood because urban legends. Naturally, this leads to an owl with a man's head pasted onto it and lots of really slow 2D horror adventure style gameplay. It's pretty cool though. Besides getting to dick around town and explore a little bit, there's also some pretty intuitive mechanics at play here. Well, more like mechanic, I suppose, but what the game does is ramp up your character's heartbeat the closer you get to potential danger, or if you're talking to a cutie girl, of course. And the environment reacts to the spooks as well. Not sure how predetermined any of this is, but it's pretty banging to see the dog getting squeamish or the birds getting unruly. It all works pretty effectively to create tension. And that's also the thing. Atmospherically, this game is fucking tight. There's very little music, and the nature sounds have just the right amount of compression to where they have this really unique texture, if you will. The chirping of the crickets, the humming of the electrical wires, the birds, the wind, all sound really crunchy, which goes well with the visuals that also look pretty good due to them being rotoscoped. Plus, the stereoscopic 3D effects it uses for the first-person investigative bits are also quite sexy. Sadly, it didn't emulate very well, crashing multiple times and only being able to get a few scraps of footage. So, I had to resort to ripping some shits off of YouTube. I mean, I'd buy it if it wasn't for the fact that I nearly fucking shat myself upon seeing what the game went for on average. No game should ever have to cost that much. But yeah, it's technically playable without knowing any Japanese, though with this being like 90% text you won't get a whole lot out of it, I'm afraid. It looks pretty when things move or pan around, but a lot of the dialogue uses still imagery and there isn't any voice acting, so needless to say, I got a bit bored with not knowing what the deal is. When you do take control though, it can be quite soothing and or eerie. Like, the town is pretty big and lively with people out and about, and the layers of parallax scrolling are definitely something to behold as well, but without the story and very little context, even that loses its value relatively fast. It would be comparable to playing Persona 4 without the dungeons, battles, and social links, so just teenagers bantering on for hours, rural townage, and amazing music basically. And despite that maybe sounding cool to some of you, I think you'll get pretty much the same exact experience by watching it on YouTube. Assuming you don't know any Japanese, of course. Exactly 2 years ago, I covered a game called White Day, a Korean title that basically did Amnesia before Amnesia ever did Amnesia. And it is much the same. So instead of combat of any kind, you'll mostly find yourself running away from whichever horrors deem you worthy of a cheeky chase. And just like all Japanese games like this, no exceptions, it's set in a high school where you play as a mute boy. The other kids are preparing for a party of some kind. Possible birthday, holiday, surprise, graduation, I don't know. But of course, they somehow end up getting locked in, and shit starts going south fast. Okay, so this game is pretty fucking stupid, but fun nevertheless. You have the entire school at your explorable feet, being that it's essentially a first-person adventure game, and it's actually quite playable despite the Jap speak. All puzzles boil down to simple find K to open door shit, and everything's telegraphed well enough visually. The language of the crowbar is universal after all. It does have a handful of dialogue-heavy sections where you're required to go back and forth between characters to forward the story and trigger events, which is the only area where shit can get a bit iffy regarding the severe case of no hablo. But, unlike the last game, this one is actually Googleable, and I got around pretty well. Just by using your own basic instincts, you too could enjoy this riveting horror adventure. Ooh. Believe it or not, but this mess actually controls pretty well. Ish. I say ish because it uses the first-person PS1 control scheme, similar to Echo Knight or Resident Evil Survivor, meaning that you have tank controls linked to the D-pad, look up and down with R2 and L2, and strafe using R1 and L1. It's just as unwieldy as always, but here shit tends to move at a reasonable pace. No slow as fuck turning or clipping on objects. Which is good, considering the chase sequences that play out like a first-person clock tower game. So Outlast or Amnesia, basically. When you have someone hot on your tail, there's a meter at the top of the screen that shows them closing in on you. It's a neat little addition that legitimately adds to the tension at least somewhat, though it still ends with you hiding in a box just as always. Anyway, in regards to the atmosphere, I scribbled down mucho oppressive, render distance, general uncanniness, school after dark in my notes while playing. I'd elaborate on that, but paired with what you're seeing on screen, I think you get a pretty clear picture yourself, but yeah, it's pretty fun. Not particularly amazing, and with the entire thing taking place within the school, it also got a wee bit boring after a while, but I can imagine that, if translated into English, this game could be pretty fucking cool. Continuing the schoolgirls vibe, Moonlight Syndrome is a game made by the man with the biggest dick, Suda motherfucking 51, and is part of the Twilight Syndrome series. But more importantly perhaps is its ties to the Silver Case, and therefore by extension to Killer 7. Needless to say, I've been looking forward to this one. It follows the adventures of two separate protags, one of which is in an incestuous relationship with his older sister, and the other is a Japanese schoolgirl. In a lot of ways, this is more or less an FMV game, where the only thing you do is walk from dialogue box to dialogue box. Or at least I played for 3 hours and that's all I did. The FMV in question though are of the low-budget early 90s variety. And holy shit, does it make this game feel incredibly weird. Despite the low polygon count, the presentation and camera placement are absolutely spot on. There's quite a laudable frameable frames that set the mood really well, which when paired with the rather excellent voice acting and music that's nearly fucking prophetic in that it uses Hoover synths, jazz chords, sparsely programmed 808 drums, and fucking grime bass lines that easily put it 10 years ahead of its time, makes this one hell of an immersive and downright bizarre experience. I mean, because of the art style, graphical fidelity, and camera angles, Moonlight Syndrome kinda looks like a peek into a freaky deaky dollhouse. A dollhouse with Clockwork Orange-like near-future apartments, nightclubs, industrial homes, creepy little boys, and lots of Suda 51. As much as I like just about everything the man's ever done, something about all of his pre-No More Heroes work just strikes the sexiest of chords with me. In my review of Killer 7 from way back when, I mentioned how it was the closest to true art house I've ever seen a game come. And Moonlight Syndrome, along with all of the other Kill the Past games, has that vibe exactly. Shit's serious, stoic, clinical, crude, and generally just really off-putting in the most subtle fucking way. From the moon-like imagery accompanied by a Texas speech voice straight up saying, "Metaphor," to the chapter title cards and weird looking art and FMV peppered throughout. It's really fucking cool. Wish I could actually read it though. With the way it is now, there isn't a very good reason to play this. I'm getting something out of this, sure, simply by virtue of me loving Suda, and it's simulating my creative bits, but other than that, this is a game you play for the story. Which, to be fair, goes for the other two games I covered just as well. But the point of this video wasn't to really recommend shit, as much as it was just to make a video I've wanted to actually watch myself for ages. It's pretty safe to say that I wouldn't have played any of these if it wasn't for that very cause. Although the next game might be the exception. With the absolute metric fuckton of horror games coming out during the mid to late 90s, it doesn't take a keen mind to figure out that maybe David Lynch's Twin Peaks was a bit of an influence. Silent Hill, Deadly Premonition, Harvester all have some elements, cues, and references relating to it. Mizzurna Falls, though, is pretty much a straight-up ripoff. Essentially being Deadly Premonition long before Deadly Premonition. Seriously, the resemblances are fucking uncanny. It tells the tale of Matthew, who is an actual resident of the town and not an outsider of any kind. Anyway, some chick gets killed and then like another chick gets killed and then I think he's like involved somehow because he's called to the police station, but I don't know Japanese, so honestly it could mean anything. What I do know though is fucking awesome shit. And this is just that. The music, the presentation, the imagery outright lifted from Twin Peaks, it's all quite marvelous. And believe it or not, it actually plays like complete fucking garbage. It shows what the buttons do on screen at all times, so no confusion there. And the tank controls are done in the same way as RE4 did them, where the camera turns along with the player character, making it, according to early 2000s game journalism, not even tank controls at all. And don't get me wrong, both of which are good, but the camera angles and the clipping, everything seems to highly disagree with all player input. And the driving is, well... But I mean, look at this. How could you not see these graphics and feel all warm and fuzzy and sexually confused on the inside? There's a man called Nas in it, for fuck's sake. This game is entirely fucking amazing. And I want it up my bumhole quite badly, so it not being released outside of Japan is truly the saddest of sad. Luckily, there's actually a fan trend underway by the same folks and/or folk what did the translation of Echo Knight 2 and that whole Resident Evil 1.5 situation. So, color me cucked, I'm hype as fuck. This game might be absolute garbage for all I care. I mean, the overabundance of clipping textures and models very well suggests so, but I still really want to play it and see for myself. Which is why I'm leaving it here for now, as I'm totes gonna review the ever-living shit out of this once it's finished. Okay, so the following segment won't be about any game in particular, but more so about something strange I uncovered while doing research. Being that Japan had an almost entirely PS1 exclusive horror genre just to themselves called sound novels. Other than its older relative, the visual novel, it doesn't so much focus on high quality art and/or animation, but instead on sound design, voice acting, and music. Kinda like a radio play with low-poly anime PowerPoint slideshows where interaction is akin to turning a page while reading a book. Lately though, the genre has mostly passed on due to the lack of technical limitations in the modern era, making the distinction preposterously muddy with games like Steins Gate, Danganronpa, and the Phoenix Wright series, incorporating elements of both and also throwing some adventure game shit into the mix. So besides some PC 98 excursions, it is now a genre damned to PS1 exclusivity. And it features games like The Last Train, which is about really shitty looking FMV and a bunch of blue people on a subway train. Night of the Kamaitachi, a game I couldn't find anything about at all except that it has a Vita version and/or a sequel, and it also stars blue people. The Witching Hour, which follows a tale of a duo of untextured Japanese girls. And also a shit ton of other games that I wanted to mention, but either have no available ROMs or any actual info regarding them that's not in Japanese. Seriously, with one of these, upon searching, YouTube was all like, "Did you mean this?" So I was all like, sure. Only for it to then give me absolutely zero results immediately after. It would seem that no one gives a shit. Nor are they at all playable with them being nothing but Japanese text, but I'd figured I'd at least try to make a mention of some kind, as they do look kinda neat conceptually. I mean, one of them is called The Newspaper of Fear, so how could I not be interested? Anyway, that's about it for me. As I said, this was a video I've been wanting to watch for ages, but apparently no one else was enough of a spastic to make it, so here I am. I do genuinely hope you enjoyed it though. Maybe you even saw something what you thought looked cool and now have to live with the knowledge that you'll never be able to play it. Welcome to the club!